So my friends from Minwax reached out and they said, "Hey, we want to challenge you to something. We're not going to tell you what the theme is, but we want you to make something use our stains." And they came back and they said, "Yeah, so we want you to make art." I said, "I think I'm going to do a landscape, just a picture. I'm going to turn into wood art." And I had the perfect picture. This is from a place my wife and I love to go hiking, and this is a place in North Carolina near Asheville. And it's called Looking Glass Hill, and it is amazing. But I wanted to turn it into like kind of a wood mosaic. So first thing I did was I took that picture, I went on the internet, and I tried to make it into sort of like a mosaic look, and realized that there is no way that I was going to be able to do something like this with such little pieces. And so I said, okay, we're going to simplify it. So I got a piece of 1/8 inch underlayment and I started sketching on it. And I had a couple pieces of scrap wood that I thought, hey, these would make some really cool, like that gnarly old tree in the background. I was like, okay, we're going to do that. So start sketching out on the underlayment just to see what would fit. I have these 1/2 inch by 6 inch boards, and I wanted to make sure that these pieces would fit on here as well. So I laid everything out. It didn't have to be anything special, particular, or exact because I'm not going to cut the underlayment because it would just shred too much. But I'm going to cut these pieces of wood. So I had this scrap piece of wood that I picked up from who knows where. And I was like, this is going to look great as a gnarly old tree. So I got to cutting that with the scroll saw here and just sort of cut out like the limbs and the roots and everything else, and knew that this was going to be the right look. Generally with the scroll saw, you don't want to use a piece that's about 3/4 inch like I was using for the tree there. You want to use something that's about a 1/2 inch or smaller. It cuts much easier on the scroll saw. If you're using a jigsaw, you can go thicker for sure, but it just makes cutting a lot easier. And you can use MDF as well, but I knew that I was going to be staining, so that's why I went to use this, either fir or pine, just something real soft that is going to be easy to cut these pieces out. So I'm using this 1/2 inch piece. It's about 6 inches wide. I have two of them. And what I want to do is make sure that all my pieces for the rock, the sky, the mountains, and everything else fit in these. And so if you see, I cut the bottoms out here right now, and then I'm going to do the top. Now, the benefit of using the scroll saw over the jigsaw is it has a very tiny blade, and it makes these pieces go together really well. So when I piece it back together, I don't have to worry about huge gaps or anything. Especially the bottom, you don't want anything to see through, especially the underlayment there. So if you do use a jigsaw, you may want to paint the back black or dark color. That way you don't have that stark contrast of the light color underneath of the underlayment. But with everything laid out here, it looks pretty good. I did sand the edges a little bit on the top, and as you can see here, it provides a little contrast, a little bit of a gap, and I know when I'm going to be staining and adding the paint here later, it will really make it pop and make those pieces have a little bit more contour. If I was a little better at power carving, I would have given some real nice look here. But hey, it's time to apply that Minwax pre-stain wood conditioner so we avoid that blotchiness, and all my stains I'm about to apply go on evenly. Now you'll notice I used a little bit of everything. I used oil-based, I used water-based. I used this that is a solid stain color. I've never used it before, but it goes on like a paint. It's nice and thick. You have one coat application, and it gave this nice bluish, greenish finish, so it's gonna be great for the background. But when I mentioned before, you wouldn't be using oil and water-based together. I'm not. Essentially, if I was one project, I wouldn't, if it's like a furniture piece, I wouldn't be putting it all over and mixing in those because they just obviously don't go together. But in this case, I'm looking for contrast of textures, finishes, matte finish, satin, a little bit of everything. That way you have that pop in the different looks of the different areas, be it clouds, sky. In this case, this was the Minwax Color of the Year in 2021. It's a vintage blue. And if you put a bunch of coats in this, the color just is amazing. But I really like that look here with the wood grain. Kind of has like wispy clouds, wispy sky. I used anything that would be like a darker, like a mahogany here. And just anything, any technique that I could do, I wiped off as I applied. They made the look a little lighter. I used a gray here. So I threw everything out there, I threw everything at this, just so we just have different looks. And if I went for those little pieces, it would have been terrible. But for here, I'm using the polyacrylic, and that's just going in that piece of wood that I already had. I didn't want to stain it or anything else. I wanted to make sure the natural look looked good. And then I grabbed a little wood glue, started gluing stuff up and piecing this together like a jigsaw puzzle. And this is where those little cuts and that little blade with the scroll saw comes in handy, because you can get these little pieces in there and they fit nice and tightly. With these last few pieces going in, there's only one last thing to do, and that's to grab my Minwax polyacrylic, put a finish coat on that'll keep it safe, keep it protected over time. But hey, here is the picture again, and let's take a look at the final look of my Let's Call It Art project. So thanks to my friends from Minwax. I hope you enjoyed this, and hey, go take a hike.